Awesome. So thank you again, everyone, for joining us today for a listen-in session and also a consultation on several new, interesting, and exciting projects around chemicals and waste. So my name is Jannah Rodi. I am the current thematic focal point of chemicals, waste, and pollution under the Children and Youth Major Group to the United Nations Environment Programme. And I'm excited to be with you all here today, including our great lineup of speakers. Just as housekeeping rules as usual, kindly please do keep yourselves muted. And if you do have anything that you would like to share, which it will be quite an engaging session, so there will be a Q&A portion. There's also going to be two different consultations. Please do raise your hand and then we will unmute you so that you can engage. And also you can use the chat function to engage as well. Of course, if you have any questions, please do raise your hand and do share your thoughts and experiences from your worldviews and also your lived experiences. So a little bit of background before we begin. So a little bit about UNEP and the work that we follow in the Children and Youth Major Group. So some of you may already be very familiar with these few slides. We usually do them before our sessions, just as a brief capacity building before we begin into the technical parts. So about the UNEP, so the United Nations Environment Programme is the UN body that's coordinating global environmental action. And usually it's organized around addressing the triple planetary crisis of climate change, biodiversity loss, and pollution. And there's different activities that UNEP is leading in for this environmental action, one of them being norm setting and environmental governance. So UNEP plays a very, very large role in enabling multilateralism and environmental agreements between countries, including through resolutions to the United Nations Environment Assembly. There's also large role of science policy that UNEP plays, providing data assessments and also informing governments and communities to be able to take decisions in an evidence-based manner. Thirdly is advocacy and communications. I would highly recommend you to follow UNEP on the different social media accounts, on LinkedIn, on Instagram. And there is also a mailing list that UNEP releases that share a lot of information about the new assessments that have been published or new opportunities for engagement, and also sometimes even alerts or job opportunities. And fourthly is capacity building and technical assistance for how to design programming or decisions or policies around very complicated interlinked topics that we are facing nowadays in the environmental sphere. So there is an opportunity for civil society engagement in UNEP, and through the governing body, this is coordinated in 9 major groups. And this is where the children and youth is housed. So we are part of the 9 major groups in the major group system, and we represent the interests of children and young people worldwide. And there's usually 2 coordinators that coordinate the group. You might have heard of them already, Clive and Natalia. Within the Children and Youth Major Group, we have more than 15,000 young people from all around the world. I'm sure most of you here probably are a part of CYMG, given that you have joined this session, or if you are new, then welcome. And we will also share some more details about how you could join as either an individual or an organization. But our mission as the Children and Youth Major Group is to support youth environmental leadership through active policy making and also expanding access to decision-making processes. And all of that also starts with capacity building. So we very frequently and regularly host different capacity building and training sessions in different topics relevant to science policy, but also relevant to different multilateral environmental agreements and governance decision-making spaces and bodies, such as the United Nations Environment Assembly, which happens every 2 years. So do stay up to date with us in our mailing list, because we are launching several new opportunities as well to engage you and your organizations as well. And as a part of the Children and Youth Major Group, we have different thematic working groups to try and cover the breadth of different topics that UNEP is leading in. And one of them is on chemicals, waste, and pollution. So last year at the Youth Environment Assembly, we have launched the Youth to Beat Pollution campaign. And this is a campaign that is trying to catalyze UNEP's existing campaign of Beat Pollution and to provide a space for young people to learn more about solutions to beat pollution. but also to gain access to information. So try to digest very complicated information when it comes to chemical waste and pollution in terms of what new science and new evidence is being released, but also what new actions can be taken to try and beat pollution. So there's three different crossroads that we're trying to build and create since last year, and we have an incredible task force that is doing this with us. One of our functions is to translate science in this campaign. So to try to simplify complex assessments and also global negotiations into accessible resources. Secondly, is to strengthen youth engagement in different governance spaces. And thirdly, is to amplify lived experiences. So would highly recommend you also follow up with our campaign. And today as well, we will have a presentation to share an update about an output from the campaign that we want to get your opinions on. So there will be a really, really exciting session that's happening later on as well today. So stay tuned. I hope I'm building up the excitement because there's really a lot that's going to be happening today. And we're grateful for your attendance and also for your inputs. And with that said, I think we can move on to our first speaker. So we have Professor Andrea Rother, who is a professor and head of Environmental Health Division in the University of Cape Town. She is a great expert of more than 25 years, who is going to share her experience with us, really bringing us back to health and how to center health in the conversations around chemicals and waste governance, especially with the upcoming Global Framework on Chemicals conference that's happening this year in Geneva. And also, we have done a capacity building and training session for the Global Framework on Chemicals earlier this year. So we'll also share it in the chat for those who may have not attended that. But something that will be really exciting to hear as well is how to center health and why health should remain at the center of this conversation when we are talking about a safer planet and a planet free from harm, not just for current generations, but also for future generations. So with that being said, I will pass the floor to Professor Andrea to share her slides with us and to enlighten us. She is also the health sector civil society representative in the Bureau of the Global Framework on Chemicals. Professor Andrea, I will pass the digital floor to you and stop sharing my screen for you to share as well.
There we go. Thank you. Always some technical issues. So thank you very much, Jana, for the very kind introduction, and also thank you for inviting me. I really enjoy engaging with the youth, and so I appreciate this opportunity. Now let me just make sure I can share my screen. If you can just confirm that you can see my screen.
Yes, we can see it. Yeah,
okay.
That's perfect.
So I probably will introduce some things with kind of assumptions that people will know, some of the things. And if you would like further information about it, please do put it in the chat and then I'll respond to it because there's quite a lot of aspects to cover. So Jean has already indicated what I'm going to cover today. And basically, I am going to try and move us quite quickly through contextualizing health in the global framework on chemicals and looking at the health sector's role in rights-based governance very briefly, and then some recommendations for you to take away on sort of actions and initiatives that you yourselves could be engaged in. So just some key points from the health sector perspective. And I'm obviously speaking from the civil society perspective. As Jana said, I'm on the Bureau representing the health sector civil society, and I also represent the World Federation of Public Health Associations in the global framework. What's important to understand is that although you look at the framework, and if you did a sort of a find word search, you would see that health comes up numerous times. But if you actually look at the discussions and you look at the negotiations, you'll see that it's actually very overshadowed by environment. And that's a very important aspect in terms of the negotiations and trying to understand if we're actually addressing health issues and who's campaigning for it. So one of the opening statements in the framework focuses on human health. It actually puts human health first, but you'll see shortly the sort of focus on the environment. But because it's a multi-sector, multi-stakeholder approach, it really provides an opportunity for the health sector to come out of the shadows. And it would be really great if the youth were a champion for bringing it out of the shadows. And I looked at your nomination for issues of concern. We're raising the issue about children's health in relation to chemicals management. So I just did a quick AI analysis of the people who actually attended the last GFC meeting in Uruguay. So it was the open-ended working group. And if you have a look at this, so these are the focal points, these are the ministries that are actually representing different countries. And you can see that the government entities representing environment were 52, health was 6, and then there were a few that were where they have agencies that cover both, and you can see the countries that are represented. You need to reflect on why that's an issue. If you're in negotiations, people are going to stick with their mandates. What is their mandate? What are they focusing on? Are they focusing on environmental issues predominantly, or are they bringing health issues to the forefront? And do they have the experience of health? So this is very important to keep in mind. So what are some of the things that are happening at the moment from the Secretariat of the Global, the GFC, in order to bring in the health sector a bit more? They're very aware that this is an issue. We from the health sector, civil society, have been raising it again and again, that there needs to be a larger profile for the health sector. So they have been initiating a process with focal points, and I'm hoping that you know about focal points. If not, I'll discuss that a bit later. But they've developed a new guidance document on how focal points can implement. They're bringing in the health sector into that, but they're also making an effort, which we've been pushing for, is to have more focal points that are from the health ministries or departments. So you saw that there were 61 from environment and only 6 from health. So we're trying to say, at least make an alternate, the focal point alternate, someone from health, if possible. Another initiative is, you might be aware that there are 3 implementation programs. I know the youth are thinking about being involved in the 3rd one that is being led by the Interorganizational Program for the Sound Management of Chemicals, the IOMC. And one of them is, so the implementation program 2 is focusing on industry, having industry more involved in the GFC, and the healthcare industry sector has been very active. And as well as the civil society for health has been trying to bring in the healthcare sector. So they're looking at chemicals in healthcare products, especially those that are increasing exposures for children and youth. They're developing terms of reference for the healthcare sector in order to abide by these. And this is being led quite a lot by WHO and other stakeholders. And hopefully you'll have my slides so you'll be able to have a look at the links that I've provided. In terms of sort of issues of concern and new emerging issues, I actually wanted to bring us back to pesticides. I mean, the irony about pesticides is that we've known since Rachel Carson's book in 1962 that pesticides are harming health, and yet we are still having the same issues. And so it's very important to continue keeping pesticide issues in the forefront. And there are targets and it is an issue of concern at the moment that is on the table. So you can see the target about bringing around about effective measures for phasing out highly hazardous pesticides. But I wanted to draw your attention to this new UNICEF document that's just come out recently this year. And it's titled Underestimated and Overlooked The Silent Impact of Pesticides on Children. And it would be very good if you download it and have a look at the table of contents. And there's a big focus on highly hazardous pesticides. So I wanted to draw to your attention two of the kind of calls to action that they have. So the one is about phasing out highly hazardous pesticides, which I'm going to come back to and hope that you will be involved in, as well as expanding the education and sort of demanding more education around pesticides and pesticide risks. This is kind of a shocking statistic that they've posted saying more than one child a day dies from pesticide poisoning. It's very underestimated. 375 deaths is no longer official. It's much higher than that. Unfortunately, there was a publication that indicated that it was higher, but the industry was very strong in getting the publication removed. So we have to continue with this old statistic. But I think it's very important to understand just how much poisoning is actually happening. So the other aspect that the document raises about child labor and how child labor is continuing, and that there are 59 million girls and 78 million boys that are in child labor, which accounts for 8% of children globally. Agriculture accounts for 61% of child labor. And of course, the aspect of highly hazardous pesticides that are being used. What's important to understand about highly hazardous pesticides is that many of them are produced in high-income countries where they are no longer sold, they're banned, but there's a loophole, so they legally can be produced there and then sent to low and middle income countries. So I'm in South Africa, and we receive a lot of pesticides regularly that are banned in the global north. And of course, children are being exposed both through child labor, but also through other means as well, and in their food. So what are some of the things that the health sector has been doing in terms of a rights-based government? Well, governance, so the WHO has a chemicals roadmap, which is a bit old at the moment, and it still refers to SciChem, and they're in the process of updating it. But it outlines various roles for stakeholders to play in upholding human rights. It advocates for transparency, that chemicals in healthcare and products and surveillance data should be available. It talks about the generation of evidence-based research. It focuses on preventing exposures, so the hierarchy of control, with elimination being the most effective. And it supports accountability. There's a high-level indicator on the chemical burden of disease. I think it's on my other slide. And that brings in is trying to bring in the burden of disease into the global framework. I realize I'm at time, but I'm going to go just a bit longer, if that's okay. All right. So recommendations that I think are quite important for the youth, for children and youth, is to play a very active role in the Global Alliance on Highly Hazardous Pesticides. Organizations can join. So I'm sure many of you are part of different organizations, and I encourage you en masse to please join, because the industry is trying to undermine it at the moment. And this is an effort that's come out of the GFC, one of the GFC resolutions, and it's an opportunity for globally to help countries phase out highly hazardous pesticides. So if you don't join yourself, please advocate for your government to join. And if you go to the UNEP website, you'll get all the information on how to join. I wanted to let you know further education is always important. There aren't that many programs. In fact, I think our program is the only one that actually is around the life cycle approach to chemicals management. And so I wanted to make a bit of a pitch just to say there are these programs that you can join. It's fully online. Have a look at it, and you can continue your education yourself about various aspects around chemicals management. And then just a few points. So continue actively participating in the global framework. bringing in the health linkage and the impact for children and youth. Be involved with the health indicators. There's not enough indicators on children and youth, so be active and be a voice. We are also doing it. Get involved in regional meetings. If you do attend the negotiations, ask if you can participate in your regional meetings. I know the Africa region does allow the youth to participate. The EU doesn't. Actively engage with your national, regional, and international health officials. So there are WHO regional reps, the UNICEF reps. Find out who's involved in the negotiations. And advocate for inclusion in primary, secondary, and tertiary education. I won't talk about the signal now, but if you want me to later, I can refer to that. So I just wanted to mention to you that UNEP has done toxicology in the classroom, and yet it's not being implemented in many schools. We've got this new GHS symbol at the bottom, which is a health symbol. How is people supposed to know that it's a chronic health hazard unless you include it in the curriculum for students? So that was just a quick overview of quite a lot of things that are happening within the health sector, and I'm open for any questions. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Professor. That was very informative, and thank you as well for also sharing the opportunities for us to advocate and bring light to different topics. And I also really loved your point on there are also issues that are not necessarily new, but they're overlooked and under represented in a lot of the discussion. So thank you for spotlighting those as well, and opportunities for engagement for us to continue our learning when it comes to these topics. We will keep the questions for after the presentations, if that's okay, because we have two other presentations, and then we'll have an open question and answer period, if that's okay. But if anyone does have a question, feel free to put it into the chat, and then maybe the Professor Andrea could also answer it in the meantime.
Thank you.
And
thanks.
Awesome. And with that said, we have our next speaker, who is actually an early career physician. So also coming from the health background, we have Kirgo Wachira. Kirgo, I will share my slides just a second. So perfect turning point to then pass the spotlight to Kirgo Achira, who is one of our task force associates for youth to beat pollution, and also has recently attended the Regional Health Forum on health and pollution in sub-Saharan Africa that was hosted in Nairobi. And Kirgo is also a training to be a medical doctor based in Kenya. And I will, hopefully this works.
Hello, good evening as Jana fixes the slides. So thank you so much, Jana, for the introduction. I will not go back there because Jana has done justice to that, and to just appreciate Professor Andrea for the insight that she has offered. And apparently some of the things she mentioned, I also happened to capture them in the slide. So these are the things we are seeing in the GFC. And as we approach the first conference to just review what has been happening, I'm happy to see that she was able to capture that and also bring out the aspect on health impacts, what we're experiencing in health from the effects of chemicals and pollution. So we can move to the next slide. I'll just be sharing some reflections from the Africa Regional Pollution Forum that happened sometime last month. That was on 16th and 17th, and this was in Kenya. And apparently this was the first time such a conference was happening, a conference that combines both pollution and now looks at the population or the human aspect of the impacts of population, and that is health. So we can go on to the next slide. So what we're going to just reflect on is one, the takeaways from the conference, and also see or share the insights that I was able to pick on how the GFC is being translated when it comes to implementation in different countries, the experiences that were shared, what is happening in different countries. I remember there was a representation from South Africa, Zambia, Kenya, Uganda, and we also had a representation from Ethiopia and Ghana. So we also finally are going to see how can we as the CYMG, or rather the youth and children, step up and continue this work on advancing awareness and creating impact, or even now translating what we already have in the policies to actionable points that can then show us, are we really improving in what we are doing, that advocacy we are doing? Can we see the health impacts reducing from how we are taking care of or how we are controlling the chemicals pollution? So as I mentioned, we had the Global Alliance on Health and Pollution, bringing everyone together. And we still had multi-stakeholder participants from government. We were two of us from the CYMG to UNEP, or rather the UNEP group. So we had a representation from the women, and I was representing the CYMG under the chemicals, waste and pollution. We had the civil societies and academia. And as I mentioned earlier, they were just sharing experiences, and these are the high level government stakeholders who are actively involved in policy making and implementation. So you can imagine the impact that was, or the strength they were bringing to the house, because we know that if these people are, especially the policy makers, are not involved when we are discussing about matters pollution, matters waste, matters chemicals, we'll keep on discussing, but when we come to implementation, we'll continue seeing gaps. So that was quite an eventful opportunity for us to witness what is happening. Next slide. So what was I able to pick, as Prof previously mentioned, is that health is now becoming central, because chemicals, at the end of it all, it affects populations, it affects people, and this is human health. And we who are in the healthcare sector, or just healthcare, we are the ones who carry the whole burden of what the chemicals are doing, from the impacts on cardiovascular system, respiratory system, from air pollution, talking of neurological development for our children. When you talk about lead pollution, it all narrows down to the impact of people's health. Again, there was increasing evidence of the need to continually use science to inform the policies that are being formulated. And I don't need to emphasize that, because this is something that has always been said. We now have the science policy translation team within the CYMG and chemicals, waste and pollution, that has just been put in place to help translate what we are seeing as evidence in the science, to inform the policies, and also to inform the advocacy that and awareness creation that we continue to do. So again, there was the aspect of prevention is more cost effective than remedy. We can only overemphasize, for example, but I'll still be speaking on lead, but just to note that, for example, lead pollution has been attributed, and these are research that was released by the Institute of Health Metrics and Evaluation, and it showed that more than 3.5 million deaths, especially from cardiovascular diseases, are from lead pollution. And again, lead exposure alone accounts for more than 71.5 million years lost to disability. So we cannot again overemphasize on the impact, the advantage we have when we prevent rather than treat what is caused by these chemicals. Again, we continue to say that collaboration is essential. No one can win this battle alone. And I was happy to see that various governments were learning from what each different countries are doing. There were lessons to pick from what Ethiopia is doing, the different policies they've put in place, the implementations they've done. We could also there were also some learning points from the Kenyan government. Just trying to we in Kenya we have the environment body which we call NEMA, which mostly deals with matters environment as well as the Ministry of Environment. And it was amazing to see how they are also now collaborating with the Ministry of Health when they are developing policies so that they are not just working alone, because we understand that without collaboration, this work will be in vain. And finally, is the youth, we are expected to contribute beyond advocacy, and I'll be speaking to that as I move on to lead pollution. Can go to the next slide. So this is just a statement that I felt was necessary to pick and to just connect the forum to what the GFC is working on. And we know lead for quite some time has just been on the sidelines, but now we can see that it's taking a great, it's coming up, and there is a greater call for us to incorporate lead when it comes to matters, discussions, policy formulation, implementation of policies. And while lead pollution was not a dominant theme of the regional pollution forum itself, many of the conversations, the health impact, implementation, evidence generation, financing, and cross-sector collaboration have precisely some of the issues now shaping preparations for the first international conference of the GFC. And I don't know how many of us have come across the call that has been put out by GAP on helping them put out lead as one of the issues of concern because of the impact we're experiencing from lead pollution. So that is another theme that came out quite clearly, that we really need to incorporate lead as one of the issues of concern as we move on to the GFC conference one. So again, Prof mentioned this, and if you've attended the previous conversations we've had under the CYMG, chemicals, waste, and pollution, these are one of the things that Jana has quite clearly elaborated to us on how the GFC came to be in 2023, how the implementation phase is ongoing, the various regional consultations that have been happening, and again now we are moving to tracking the progress to really see, are we getting better? Are we reducing the number of deaths caused by pollutions? Are we reducing or are we lowering the vulnerability of those communities that are put at risk, especially now that Prof mentioned about pesticides, pollution. I'm here talking about lead. We also have the group working on mercury. We have the group working on the transborder movement of chemicals and waste. So now we are looking at, are we tracking what progress are we making as we continue with the implementation phase of the GFC? And so that is what the first international conference will be looking at. And I was happy to, as I was trying to go through on what exactly will be happening during the conference, I was really amused by some of the three agendas that are being put in place. And one is tracking the progress. And from the tracking the progress, we have two high-level indicators, and one is on health, and the other one is on the environment. And we are going to see what is happening for the two high-level indicators that are being proposed. Two, we have accelerating action by just sharing the practical implementation approaches to see what is this country doing, what can we learn from the other country, etc., and to see what best practices can we pick even for us as the youth as we continue with this journey. And again, finally, is investing for impact through financing, partnerships, and innovation. As you know, financing really plays a big role when it comes to the implementation phase of this. So those are the three agendas that we'll be seeing. So I've mentioned there are two high-level indicators that we are seeing. One is a high-level indicator on the burden of disease, and I'll be a bit biased now that I'm from the health sector. I'll speak more on the health aspects, and again, there's also the environment indicator, but let me focus more on the health aspect. So there's one indicator that will be focusing on the global burden of disease that is attributed to chemicals, pollution. And you remember we just said that lead pollution is gaining momentum because of the adverse impact or the adverse effects on health that it's causing. So we'll have lead exposure being evaluated, an intentional poisoning from these chemicals, again, occupational particulates, as well as occupational carcinogens that are attributed to chemicals and waste. And then we have, they'll be looking at the limitations as well as a complementary approach for the GFC to incorporate this indicator on health. So we can move on to the next slide. No, I won't talk much about the environmental burden because I believe we have an environmentalist who can talk more about this. But again, so we can move on to why lead. And we can see that lead is not replacing other chemicals as a priority, but it has become an important example on why effective chemicals management matters. Because, as we know, lead pollution demonstrates lifelong health impacts from how it impacts the health of children, environmental contamination, occupational exposure for those who do recycling of lead batteries, paints, and we are now seeing some of the food industries producing food that has been found to have some contaminants of lead, especially lead chromate. And again, waste management failures especially when it comes to the Juakali sector, as well as economic losses from the years lost to disability and children vulnerability. We can move on to the next one. So lead is gaining momentum because of matters health, and the WHO from their data, it shows that there is no safe level of lead in blood. So, but they say levels above 3.5 are quite worrying, and there has been little that has been done to just measure the blood levels, especially on the highly exposed groups. So it's good that we know that there's no safe level of lead in blood. Again, with the child neurodevelopment impact is another great issue that we are having, because you can imagine the children who live close to the dump sites where lead batteries recycling is happening, and what that speaks to their health. So again, we have issues with cardiovascular disease, kidney diseases, and pregnancy outcomes. Again, we have matters to do with the environment and development. And we can go to the next slide. So we can see that lead is coming up as a real issue. And I want to just finalize this. I don't want to reference a certain package that has been that was released sometime last month by the WHO, and they are calling it the WHO Prevent Technical Package for Lead Poisoning Prevention, and it has been developed in collaboration with the Bloomberg Philanthropies and Resolve to Save Lives. That challenges us to just think differently. And I love the fact that this package provides countries with a very practical roadmap built around 6 interconnected pillars. It's an initial prevent, but now each letter contributes or speaks to a certain aspect of lead prevention. So P speaks to prioritize sources and pathways of exposure, determining public health risk. Yes, we know where the lead pollution sources are coming from. But again, they are calling us to now showcase where exactly or which populations are truly impacted by this lead pollution, and also try to assess the actionabilities, or rather what is a country's ability to take action, and are there existing laws and regulations that exist. That's on the P. And then on the R, they are speaking to responding to elevated blood lead levels and ongoing exposure, to just establish blood lead surveillance. And I love this you can check him out on LinkedIn. He's doing a lot of work on lead monitoring. He's Dr. Kuti. You'll see he's doing a lot of work on lead blood level surveillance. That is to just respond to elevated lead levels and ongoing exposures. Then moving on to the E, it's to just engage stakeholders and communities for sustained momentum. And it all begins with industrial change. The industries that are responsible for matters lead pollution, to just engage them and see whether they can they are willing to change their practices. They are willing to adopt new technologies. Are they willing to reformulate their products and to improve public awareness and engagement? Again, we have the V standing for verifying regulations and standards, to just identify and a clear enforcement authority on lead pollution, and to adopt or even to amend the existing laws so that they can address the actual challenges that we are seeing. And then we have E standing for enforcing regulations, whereby we want to inspect facilities. We want to monitor ambient environment for lead, what is assisting or allowing the lead pollution to continue. Again, inspect the products that are being released, and also publicize the results of what science or what research is showing. And then finally, the T stands for tracking the progress and evaluating the impact from all these. So this to encourage and support countries in investing in surveillance systems and environmental monitoring, and as we mentioned, blood lead level monitoring, data systems capable of, and ensuring they have data systems capable of measuring progress over time. Because what gets measured gets managed, and what gets tracked gets improved. So a call to the youth and the young people. We can go to the next slide. And these are call for us to generate evidence. I'm so delighted to have joined this space at a time like this, because a lot of research is needed, and I see an opportunity where we can sharpen our research skills, contribute to evidence, contribute to policies by doing a lot of research from citizen science, data synthesis, and policy briefs, as well as now without the community, these are the people who are affected, translating what is in the policies, the complex policy wordings, and just simplifying this language to our young children, our communities, our in different countries, different languages, to just communicate the risk, talk to them about behavior change, as well as engage the school-going children. And again, what UNEP does, and we as the CMG, we have a role to play in formulating policies that need to be. And these are called to everyone, especially those of us in the health sector. It all comes back to us. So I'm calling unto each one of us. Let's join hands and make this happen. Let's help in generation of evidence, translating science into policy, awareness and advocacy, and also create tables. Make sure you are at the tables when the implementation is happening, and build evidence on monitoring and tracking progress. Those were my few take-home messages, and I hope we got something from that. You can drop the questions, and over to you, Jana.
Thank you so much, Kirigo, for sharing your reflections from the forum. It seemed like it was a very rich space to exchange knowledge in between different rights holders and stakeholders. And thank you again for painting the picture of where different people can contribute based off of their experiences and for really bringing on the point of evidence. I think even throughout the entire conversation with you and with Professor Andrea, there was a lot of this statistics shared and knowledge shared. And this is the importance of using evidence to inform decisions in terms of how do we prioritize what is an emergent issue that is affecting the largest group of vulnerable populations and children and youth, especially with children in the development ages of under 5. It's a very critical period, and at a time where we need to advocate, especially with a lot of emerging chemicals in markets now. So thank you again for that, Kirigo. And I think there's some comments in the chat, and there's already been some exchanges, questions and comments, Professor Andrea. So if anyone does have questions, please put them in the chat. We'll also have an attempt for a very quick Q&A period because we still have some other presentations. In the meantime, we do have, I believe, in the call, Uriel Jessica Legbain, who is going to be our next speaker. I'm just making sure that she is here. Um, uh, okay, I think I had briefly seen her. Ah, here. Yep. Uriel, could you hear us?
Yes, Dana. Can you hear me
Hello.
now?
Yes,
Hello.
yes, we can hear you. Hello, hi. Thank you so much for
Hi.
joining us.
Yes, I'm fine. You?
Thank you so much. Awesome. So we have Ms. Uriel Jessica Legbain, who is a member of the IPEN, the International Pollutants Elimination Network Youth Caucus, and she is also the head of the Chemicals and Waste Department at the Young Volunteers for the Environment in Cameroon. Uriel is trained as a petroleum and gas engineer, and she moved into environmental advocacy to work directly on chemical risk governance in Cameroon. Where she has coordinated a campaign on lead, actually, particularly in schools, and works to simplify technical chemical reports for young audiences through initiatives such as Let's Talk Chemicals. And she's hoping to build a long-term career in scientific advocacy and chemical risk governance. Thank you so much for being with us today. It's great to be hearing from your experiences and also to learn more from your insights and great initiatives. You have the floor to share your insights with us.
All right. Thank you for the presentation. Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for the opportunity to talk today on the topic of the new and emerging issues for children and youth. So, right, let me go to the presentation mode. So, I will go directly to the topic. So we are living through three major global transition, the energy transition. So the emerging transition, the digital transition, the transition toward a circular economy, and those changes are essential for sustainable development. But they are also creating new climate challenge. So but they are advocated to make sure that our policy and waste management system are struggling to regulate or keep it up with. So why emerging chemical risk require immediate attention? So according to the International Energy Agency, the demand for minerals like cobalt, like nickel, like lithium, using clean energy technology is expected to grow dramatically over the coming decade. So at the same time, new waste streams are emerging faster than many countries, in particular in African countries, and are struggle to be safely managed. So children and young people will live with the consequence of this choice for the seed. And today, I will share three examples that illustrate why emerging chemicals will deserve greater attention. So, my first example is the lithium-ion battery waste. So, sorry, I have a little flu, but we know that batteries are essential for electric vehicles, renewable energy storage, mobile phones, and digital technology. So they are central to the global energy transition. And according to the International Energy Agency, under the net zero emission scenario, demand for lithium could increase by more than 40 times by 2040 compared to 2020 levels. So demand for cobalt, nickel, and graphite is also expected to increase substantially. So that means that millions of lithium-ion battery will reach the end of the useful life over the coming year. And without proper collection, without proper collection and recycling system, they become a rapidly growing hazardous waste stream. So lithium-ion battery we know that it contains substance and can also cause fires when damaged or improperly handled. So recovering valuable material from this battery requires special facility and trained workers. So in 2022, IPEN and the Ohio Institute, together with African partner organization, one that used lithium-ion battery were increasingly being exported or donated to African countries without harmonized rules governing transport, reuse, and end of life management. So many countries still lack dedicated legislation and safe collection system and industrial scale recycling infrastructure. So the danger for young people and children in many places is very particularly important because informal waste recovery involves young workers, while surrounding communities and country children may be exposed to toxic substance released during the dismantling or uncontrolled fires. So it must not shift. The clean energy transition doesn't have to shift to new chemical risks until the community is least prepared to manage them. So I continue with the second example. We have uh, we have the emerging issue that are always not new chemicals. So we have the sometimes emerging challenging is the return of chemicals that we believe have origin been controlled. So in 2025, researchers from IPEN and Arnica published a peer-reviewed study in the journal Emerging Contaminants. So they analyzed eggs collected near e-waste recycling sites and dumpsites in 15 countries across 5 continents. So eggs are widely used as bioindicators because free-range hens feed directly from the surrounding environment and accumulate persistent pollutant present in contaminated soil. So the results were alarming. We have detected high level of brominated flame retardant and brominated dioxins. So in some locations, dioxin concentration were up to 200 times higher than the European Union's food safety limit, uh, who is 2.5 picogram per gram. So this is an important reminder that banning hazardous chemicals is only part of the solution. So while waste management allow this substance to return, it will remain in the environment for the sake. So eventually, re-entering the food chain. So why this matters for children? Because we know that egg is used on a daily basis for breakfast on children. Are one of the most common affordable source of protein in many communities. So exposure to food during childhood can have lifelong consequences. So this issue has to be addressed and on the global framework on chemicals. And I will go to the last example, the PFAS, who is not new. We all knew that the forever chemicals are a topic and a issue in many countries, like in Cameroon, where we don't have much information um, about the situation. So more than uh, multi-phase substances have been identified. So the exceptional persistence means that they remain in the environment for years. The important development is not that PFAS exists, it is that international regulation is rapidly evolving. So at the 2025 conference of the party to the Stockholm Convention, party agreed to list long-chain PFAS for global elimination, marking another important step toward reducing PFAS pollution. However, regulation alone is not enough. Many countries still lack laboratory capacity, environmental monitoring system, and analytic methods needed to detect these chemicals in water, food, and environment. So scientific evidence indicates that some PFAS can cross the placenta, and we know that. But uh, we want to say that if you want global restriction to be effective, we must also invest in global monitoring capacity. That is the most lacking point uh, that recent policy cannot address. And I will go to the last slide, building a toxic-free future for children. These three examples illustrate a common message. As the world changes, chemical risks are also changing, and the energy transition is creating new hazardous waste streams, and legacy pollutants continue to contaminate our food long after they have been burning. A new international regulation requires a stronger national capacity to become effective. So as young people, we are not asking the world to slow innovation. We are asking that innovation be accompanied by responsibility. So we therefore encourage the global framework on chemicals to focus on three priorities. First, anticipate emerging chemical risks before they become widespread. And second, strengthen monitoring systems, scientific capacity, and access to reliable data. And, and third, ensure that young people are meaningfully involved in chemicals and waste governance because we have some, how can I say that, evolution to integrate young people in the governance, but it's not as effective and in not in our country, particularly in Africa. So I would like to conclude with one message um, that children should not inherit the benefit of innovation and not its hide and succeed legacy. So thank you for your attention. Thank you very much. And this is the conclusion of my presentation. So I look forward for the discussion.
Thank you so much, Jessica, for sharing the presentation and for taking us through a journey of connecting how emerging technologies as well, and the rapid race towards electrification, and the different industries, especially when it comes to an increase in population sizes around the world and the need to secure the different essential nutrition for different populations. That also has the consequence of the use of different chemicals and how what that means. It might the effect might not be seen currently, but they might emerge later. And so your last point as well was really, really important in terms of keeping a critical eye to the future and the foresight of what's used today for what may emerge later. And that horizon scanning element reminds me of the new science policy panel that was created, the Intergovernmental Science Policy Panel on Chemicals, Waste and Pollution, and how that's one of the functions and objectives of the panel, is horizon scanning to make sure that governments are equipped to think long term in terms of investing in different industries or whatnot, to make sure that the inputs in their communities don't have massive outputs that might be health impact as well. So thank you so much for that. I do. We did want to have an open Q&A session, but there is a bit of a limit in time. So I have seen that some people have been proactive in asking some questions into the chat. So I would highly recommend for those who have questions to please place them into the chat. I see we have a question from Fitria. So I would suggest for our speakers to have a reflection on that question. And if possible, now to move on to the next part of the webinar, which is supposed to be more of a consultation on the educational elements when it comes to chemicals, waste, and pollution. And with everything that we have shared, it was a lot of very, very exciting, deep insights into the technical aspects when it comes to the unsound management of chemicals and waste. And now, with all of that information, a lot of young people sometimes don't have that access to understanding all of that technical information. So, what are different tools and methodologies that we can use in our communities and in our work, whether some of us work as educators or we work in schools or we have our own non-for-profit organizations and want to increase and improve the awareness of young people when it comes to these emerging issues? How do we deliver that information? What tools can be used? We are all meeting here today from all around the world using the internet, using digital media. Digital media has become a tool now to widely spread information. So how can we use that for good and for hope to try and decrease the gap between the technical knowledge and the evidence to what people can understand and digest in terms of how it impacts them, how it impacts their health and their communities, and what actions they can take. So we have two exciting speakers for this part of the session. Let me first start by introducing our first speaker. We have Mr. Charles Stubbington, which some of you may have already followed him and the great work that he is doing when it comes to making different agreements and conventions relevant to chemicals and waste accessible through very creative media and outlets. So we're very excited to have him here with us to also share on new exciting project that he's working on to try and make the global framework on chemicals targets also accessible. So I will leave the floor to you, Charles, to take us through your creativity. And also, this session is supposed to be interactive. So I would request from all of you to put on your creativity hats on and experience, first of all, what Charles is to share with us in terms of his progress on making the global framework on chemicals targets accessible to young people. So we are the target audience. Obviously, these tools can be used by any generation and by anyone, but they would also be really helpful for children and youth in environmental education. So if you are an educator or you work with young people, put your creative hats on, experience what he is about to share us, and there will be an opportunity to exchange some ideas as well. So Charles, I will leave the floor to you now to share on the project. Thank you.
Thank you. Hopefully you can see that, although I can't access, sorry. I need to now move this. This is a great start, isn't it? Right, this should hopefully work. So, with a bit of luck, you can't see any of the dashboardy type stuff which I've got in front, but you should be able to see Waste Wizard Doodles.
Perfect.
Wonderful. Hi, so my name's Charles Stubbington. I am going to hopefully be able to click forwards and backwards. Yes, I can. Excellent. So, my name's Charles Stubbington. I don't really know what to call myself or how to introduce myself. I guess I can probably call myself an illustrator. I very much see myself as a kind of educator, but primarily my background is kind of technical. It is understanding environmental chemistry, understanding risk management, and that. I've kind of fallen into a role of educating, providing kind of outreach and trying to make all sorts of risks and environmental issues and chemical issues more accessible. As a bit of a passion project, something I'm kind of quite passionate about. Part of that stems from the fact I'm dyslexic and my brain works very visually. I like to kind of tie information to pictures, hence the huge quantity of illustrations you will see coming your way. And I've also kind of found, I don't like reading huge amounts of text. I don't like reading the really complicated convention text. It's not particularly nice to read, even if you do enjoy reading. So I spend a lot of time trying to get my head around that, trying to make it a bit more approachable, a bit more accessible. I never claim to kind of say this is the definitive definition of it, the interpretation of it. I very much try to just spark curiosity so that people can then find their own way to that more in-depth information. So, like I said, I'm Charles Stubbington. Hopefully I'm going to explain who I am, why you should listen to me, and kind of what I would like you to kind of take away from this, kind of what I need your help with, because I've got, potentially quite an ambitious kind of project, which I'm hoping to have achieved by November, but I certainly need some help to get it done. So I'll talk about those in a moment, but first of all, I'm going to hopefully showcase what I can do, what I have done. I'm hopefully going to explain a different kind of international convention to you, the Basel Convention. Basel Convention deals with chemicals, but more kind of in a waste kind of aspect. It kind of deals with how you can send waste around the world, buying it, selling it, and the kind of consequences of doing so. So with a bit of luck, you should be able to hear this. Yell if you can't. Oh, that's Barry. That's not me. He's my little chemical waste barrel. So with a bit of luck, you should be able to hear. I'd recommend either listening to the music or reading the text. Not both of them. There'll be plenty of opportunities to see or listen later if you would like. So with a bit of luck, you can hear it.
Sailed the 7 stinking seas through storms and skies of flame. I've plundered ports and sunken ships and earned a roguish name. But what I saw ashore one day turned my old gut to stone. Mountains of waste from distant lands dumped miles from their home. Yo ho ho ho, the Basel Convention, a code of the sea, stops hazardous waste from sailing free. I'm dumping stuff like that. 'Twas in the year of '89 as trash did flood the shores. From north to south the toxic tide grew harder to ignore. The rich ship sailed with poison holes to dump where laws were slack. But nations rose with fire in eyes and swore to push it back. Yo ho ho ho, the Basel Convention, a code of the sea, stops hazardous waste from sailing free. I'm pirate born, a rascal rogue, I steal and cheat and scrap, but even I would never sink to dumping stuff like that.
Awesome. So hopefully that gives you a rough idea of what you can do with a bit of a jingle, some colourful illustrations, and a little bit of knowledge of a convention. Hopefully that's a bit more inviting than, you know, a 40-page document explaining the ins and outs of waste management. And you'll certainly never be able to kind of instantly walk into a conference of parties and say, hey, I know everything after listening to this. But you will at least be able to introduce the subject. You'll be able to kind of spark a conversation about it, maybe get someone curious to then go and read the more information that is out there. Apologies. There we go. So, like I said, I kind of call myself a technical illustrator. I have got a couple of degrees in environmental management, so I've got earth and environmental science and contamination, and I have been working just under 10 years kind of in the waste sector. I tend to focus on things which are a little bit hazardous, but I enjoy that. So I've touched on land contamination, I've touched on hazardous waste, I've touched on kind of emergency waste management from bad things happening. So I've got the kind of knowledge to back up my illustrations. I've got sector experience in international negotiations. I've sat behind the desks. I've kind of been in those negotiations. I understand how they work, how sometimes they don't work, and I kind of enjoy kind of following along and trying to make it stay in my head, and by doing that, hopefully make it accessible, make it understandable to people who haven't had the years of experience, the years of sitting behind a textbook, kind of understanding it. So yes, like I said, Basel Convention, it is quite a lengthy convention. There's a lot of text in there, a whole load of annexes. So I made it colourful. That's something which I'm still working on. It's not the fastest process. It's not my day job to kind of do this. Like I said, I work in the waste sector, in the kind of emergency sector, that kind of thing. So this is just a passion project for me, but it's fun, it's colourful. And so I call myself an educator. I am in the process of starting a new role, which is specifically educating. So I'm hoping I'll be able to bring kind of aspects of that to waste management, to chemical management, to the illustrations that I do, to make it even more effective. But for now, this is very much me, a one-man band, trying to make it colourful, trying to make it approachable, trying to make it a slightly easier kind of landscape to get into. So I'm going to touch now on why you should listen to me. Again, this is another kind of song. Just point out that the illustrations are all my doing. I've spent 5 years teaching myself to do it. The music is AI generated. I am in the process of trying to find real life artists to kind of take that from me, to kind of make it into actual real songs. I'm working with some people. It's a work in progress. I'd love to have a community of people who are able to make the songs, to kind of do it themselves, and rather than AI take from an industry, give something back and make something bigger. But for the moment, this is all I've got. So why should you listen to me? This hopefully explains it a little bit.
I've walked those halls before, seen the panels and the lights from the public sector stage. I've battled through the nights. Negotiations aren't just words, their future's on the line. And I've built trust with delegates, built friendships over time. Now there's a call for voices young, for those who dare to speak, who'll shine the spotlight on solutions old folks rarely seek. With science in my toolkit and courage in my stride, I'm ready to stand up and make young voices come to life. I make this invisible as my pencil strikes the page, turning convention text into images. All can now engage. My background set, my passion strong. Let me amplify the call, so the children and youth can rise up tall and make the unseen known to all. 2 degrees in contamination and subjects that relate. A decade in waste management, reducing damage we create. With pencil, paint, or pen, I draw the threats we can't deny. Crafting pictures kids can understand, so no one's left behind. I've seen toxins in the water, I've tracked rubbish in the land. I illustrate the consequences so the next gen understands. 'Cause knowledge is the power that can spark a brand new start. And though I'm grown, I hold on to that curious, youthful heart. I make visible the invisible as my pencil strikes the page, turning convention text to images. All can now engage. My background set, my passion strong. Let me amplify the call, so the children and youth can rise up tall and make the unseen known to all. The story of waste and chemicals can't stay behind closed doors. It's not just science journals, it affects our homes and shores. From factories to rivers, from landfills to the air. We need to share the impact so the world knows why we care.
So yes, that's my background, that's what I'm doing, that's why I'm passionate about it. But that doesn't explain why I'm here talking to a load of people about the chemicals framework. This is the next part. Essentially, what I'm hoping to be able to do is illustrate it. I've been approached by Janet, we've had conversations. I'm hoping that by November, fingers crossed, I might have had time with some help from you guys to have illustrated essentially the objectives. From memory, there's about 30 of them plus some overarching kind of aims. And I would love to have essentially visual representations of each of those, things that can be kind of used in infographics, used in outreach, used to help explain to people what the aim is, why we're doing it, why it's important. Something that's bright and colourful, catches your eye and starts conversations. So I need your help to find the right illustrations. My dyslexic brain is very good at kind of listening to information, absorbing it and thinking, that's going to be that. You know, I've done that with Basel Convention, Stockholm Convention, bits of Rotterdam Convention. I've done it with Minamata Convention. All of those have got their own little characters. They've got their own little themes. This is a new one for me, and I'd love to have it something that we can build together, get your input. As a quick example, so this is E6, the objective. I can't see the exact wording because of the various things I've got on my screen, so let's try putting that down there. So yes, this objective is by 2030, stakeholders identify and strengthen, as appropriate, synergies and linkages between chemicals and waste management and other key environmental, health and labour policies, such as those related to climate change solutions, biodiversity conservation, human rights protection, universal health coverage, or primary healthcare. All of these kind of conventions are kind of that very segmented, kind of not flowing kind of text. Horrible for a dyslexic, maybe a bit better for other people, I'm not sure. I much prefer it in picture form. So what I'm doing is I go through them and I pick out bits. So synergies and linkages are holding hands and a little love heart. Chemicals is Barry, my little chemical guy. Waste management is my little trash can. He is called Trevor. He's a bit of a fan favorite. Environmental, this time I've used a little frog, a snail, and a butterfly. Health is my little first aid kit. Labour policies and human rights protection doesn't quite sit right with me with a little briefcase. That's one of the bits which I'm going to need people's help on. I'm going to be thinking about what it can be. Suggestions are very much welcome from all of you guys. If you have any at the moment, feel free to put them in the chat, but I'm hoping we can kind of make a process to get this a collaborative kind of thing. So that's what I've done with a couple of them so far. Not all of them though, there's still a fair few to go. Yeah, I need your help kind of judging what you think's important, which bits are the bits you think kind of the voice of children and youth needs to be heard about. And I want you to feel like part of the process. I'd love it at the end if we can say, we as a community of children and youth, I still class myself as a youth. I don't know what the cutoff point is, but I'm young at heart. I'd love it if we could say we built this together. You know, we're sharing it together. We're using it to educate other young people, even adults. Even adults love bright, colourful pictures and stickers. They always come back for stickers. Anyway, so what I'd love to do is kind of understand what you think the main point is, who the characters could be. You know, if it's about lead, I've got a little lead character ready. But if you think there's a point about a specific chemical, what are its key features? What would its personality be like? That kind of stuff. And then any kind of ideas to make them particularly fun. So I've got a couple of objectives which I've pulled out. Some of these are works in progress. Some of these are more polished than others. So by 2030, all countries have access to poison centres equipped with essential capabilities to prevent and respond to poisonings, as well as access to training in chemical risk prevention and clinical toxicology. In my mind, countries are represented by a flag, a very generic flag. I might point out, I try not to get political, a very generic flag, asking some questions on a phone with a little poison bottle and a health kit. That's my interpretation. I would love to hear other people's. I'd love to hear what other props could be used for healthcare or what other props could be used for clinical toxicology. We've got another one, which is by 2035, stakeholders generate data on the production of chemicals, including the use of chemicals in materials and products, in addition to data on emissions and releases of chemicals and waste to the environment, making these data available and publicly accessible. So I got a little graph of tracking various different aspects. I've not come up with an idea of how to show that as being made publicly accessible. Off the top of my head, maybe a little character putting a poster up on the wall, maybe someone sending a mass email. I don't know. These are the kind of things which, as I get to talk to people, as I kind of talk to subject matter experts, they just pop into my head. But it may well be you guys have a fantastic idea of how I can show that, and I'd love to hear from you. So there's a number of others which I haven't come up with ideas yet. There are quite a few of them. I'm still at the brainstorming a lot of them. But you know, searching for the chemicals framework will pull up the objectives. But what I would like to do, I would like to find a way to essentially send out a draft. This could be by social media, it could be by a WhatsApp group, it could be by an Instagram account. Show what the objective is that I'm working on that day or that couple of days. Give a rough sketch like the ones I've just shown, and then get feedback, get comments, get suggestions, and then pull that together into a more polished, finished visual, which can be kind of used for them. I don't know what the best way to do that is. I'm open to suggestions, open to, you know, conversations, if it's an email out, if it's a WhatsApp group, if it's a Instagram account, I don't know. And then I'm also really interested in, once we've got these, you know, set of illustrations, how could they be used? I want them to go out into the world and be used so that people can educate. I don't know if that's, you know, production for schools. I don't know if that's information sent out on packaging of relevant chemicals or whatever. There will be situations which I haven't come across. I sit behind a desk for most of my day. I'm not out in the field. I'm not dealing with these kind of day to day. So people who know where the kind of gaps in our knowledge are collectively might have better ideas than I for how they can be used. So that's me. That's what I'm trying to achieve. I would love it if either If you have any suggestions on how they can be used, suggestions for objectives which you've read up, which you're aware of, things like that, they could go into the chat. You're welcome to kind of privately message me. I'm quite active on LinkedIn. I have a couple of kind of social media accounts, which we'll get to in the next slide. And I would love to kind of have a collaborative effort to kind of make these illustrations and kind of make them widely available. So that's me. The QR code there takes me to the Waste Wizard Doodles Instagram account. It is a tiny account at the moment. This is the first time I've had an opportunity to kind of actually explore this from a personal capacity without a corporate hat on, which has been a little bit restrictive. So I would love to build a community there. That might be a way to kind of send out some draft pictures, get feedback. You'd be able to kind of comment on what you think props should be, what you think the kind of general direction should be. And I'd be able to kind of post the finished product there as we go. I don't know if most people have Instagram. I've not had it for a while. So I'm open to other suggestions. But that is essentially what I'm trying to achieve, what I'm trying to do, trying to make chemicals a little bit more bright and colourful, a little bit more approachable, and hopefully a little more understood. There's a couple of other side projects which I'm working on, such as kind of the mercury kind of uses, the emerging kind of chemical issues, that kind of stuff, which can run alongside, potentially reaching out to people again for that. But yeah, that's me. That's the kind of presentation I've put together. I'll stop sharing, and if there's time for questions, happy to answer any questions. If not, people are welcome to reach out to me, either LinkedIn, Instagram, or through Jana, I guess. I'll pass back to Jana if there's any questions.
Thank you so much, Charles. I'm not sure if you saw the reactions as you were presenting, but there was an explosion of reactions on screen, and the comment section was on fire, if I may say. People, I think it was just comment after comment of people saying this was really useful and very child-friendly and was very informative. I would welcome people if anyone has anything that they would like to share. I know that there's some educators on the call. And people who work more closely in this field, feel free to raise your hand, and then you could share your thoughts. And as people do that, I just wanted to say in terms of the media for input, I think Instagram is a great way because there's the function of polling as well. So even if you had like a few ideas and wanted to get a poll count just to see people's different views on something, or you can even have the function of people inputting their perspectives, I think Instagram would be great. And we'd be happy to collaborate as well to amplify whenever there is a call out. I see there's one hand up, and others as well. Feel free to raise your hands and also share.
I'll just add, I fully intend to read for each of the comments after I've finished speaking, so I will try and get back to as many questions as there are in the comments. And I will have to say there may need to be a conscious push to kind of get engagement on my Instagram accounts and stuff.
Yeah.
I've not had an opportunity to kind of do any of this outreach. Like I said, I've had a corporate hat on, so it's been limited. So it is very much a juvenile Instagram account with very few followers, very little outreach. But if it's able to grow and if it's able to kind of get out to the people who need it, that's great. I don't see myself as some mass influencer, that kind of thing. I'm there to kind of help educate and produce graphics. It may well be that other people have to do sharing and stuff like that, or even give me advice on what to do. That's possibly a conversation for Instagram.
Yes, no, exactly. And there's many different accounts and many people who I think would love to amplify and to share your platforms. I think this is also maybe something that can be done. So I see Asani has hand up. Asani, feel free to share your thoughts. And then we do have one more speaker, and we are a bit over time, so maybe we will also have to move for the next part. Asani?
Hello, good afternoon, Charles. Good afternoon.
Afternoon.
Hello.
Hello.
All right. My name is Hassan. I'm, speaking from Nigeria. My question to you is that first, I must, commend you for a job well done. Then, secondly, I want to know if it is possible for you to do this into a form of, documentary like that. That's my simple question to you.
Was that in a document? Sorry.
Exactly.
So I'd have to caveat this with this is not a full-time job. This is a passion project that I do in my own time. I quite like the idea of producing graphics that can be used as either kind of short 2-page explainers for specific issues, or that can be combined into essentially a visual version of a convention or a visual version of a framework. That is certainly a direction which I think would be great. I wouldn't be able to do that all by myself. That would be something which I potentially do the illustration for, lead some of the kind of direction for, but then I'd need other people to kind of take it forward. That is a conversation that I've had with Jana about how that might work. But yes, that is ultimately, I would love to have a series of, visual Basel Convention, visual Stockholm Convention, visual chemicals framework. I would love that. It's not something I can do exactly at the moment because I'm a one-man band, a passion project. But if it's possible, aim for the stars.
Thank you so much for that. And yes, for sure, that's something in conversation and something that we also do in the children and youth major group in terms of the capacity building and also making knowledge more accessible with visuals. So we'd be happy to also collaborate in that essence. And actually, I hope it's okay, but that's a perfect segue to our next speaker and our final speaker. And then I think this is probably not the last time we will be collaborating with Charles, and to try and bring in different voices to then collaboratively try to create the end product and support his creative process of creating that end product, and then having mobilization afterwards, after the visuals are ready, and being able to package it in a way that can be utilized and operationalized in different communities. I think is the main goal afterwards as well. So it was great to get the first preview by people here, and I think there will be a lot more people on the way to your Instagram and also your LinkedIn. So I hope you're ready for that, Charles, for the influx.
Yep. Just caveat that with there is a lot of other emergency management type stuff. It's not all just waste management. I kind of do it in pairs. I do tend to direct people to waste management or emergency stuff. By all means, look at the emergency stuff as well. And I will try and get a draft image out onto my Instagram for maybe Tuesday, so that we can start a conversation about how to kind of take it from there.
That's awesome. Thank you so much for that, Charles, and for all the great work that you're doing. I think you've inspired a lot of us and energized us to keep with the work, and to also bring in the arts and try to make it a bit more fun as well, as we go through this process, which is sometimes very draining, but it can also be a way that's engaging and collaborative. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
So we do have one final speaker, and I will share my screen, and it's alongside the same track of accessibility and trying to bridge the gap between knowledge and usage, especially for young people. And with that, I would love to introduce our next speaker. Just the slides are loading. So we have Dia Warrior, who is part of the task force as well of the Youth to Beat Pollution campaign. And she's going to be sharing a bit more about a new output that we are working on in terms of chemicals and everyday products for youth to beat pollution, and how to make information more accessible basically for young people. So that flows really well with Charles' illustrations, and there could be lots of opportunities for collaboration there as well. So Dia, you have the floor, and please tell me, would you like to share from your side? I can also share from my side. That's totally fine.
Sorry, yeah, you can share it. It's fine. It's just 3 slides. Okay, thank you, Jana, for the introduction. And I think the session has been so perfectly curated because all the previous speakers have like perfectly set the foundation for what we're going to present now. So thank you, Jessica, Kirigo, Professor Hannah, Andrea, and Charles. So I'll jump right in. We can go to the next slide. So yeah, as discussed by the previous speakers, we know that we have chemicals all around us in different products, in different products, but then the dialogues have been very, kind of gate kept in technical or academic spaces, which aren't very accessible to youth and children. So, and ironically, youth and children are the most disproportionately affected and vulnerable groups to chemical exposure. And because of our biological composition or consumption trends, and we have markets just pumping out products on a daily basis targeting youth and children. But then, do children and youth have the capacity and knowledge to decipher what they are exactly consuming? And that is the gap that we are trying to close here. So we've decided on doing a 5-part series. So each part will focus on a specific chemical. So one is mercury, lead, then we have PFAs, bisphenols, and VOCs. And like Charles, I also hate long reports. Jana also hates long reports. So we decided on doing like a 70% art and 30% text sort of thing, so that it's not very overwhelming and boring to read, and it's easier to basically convey the message or convey information. But at the same time, we also understand that there's visually impaired people that won't be able to access this. So we are also exploring on doing like a storytelling, just text, but storytelling focused report on this. And yeah, this report will basically have a focus on just youth and children, as in like the lens will be through youth and children on how mercury, for example, specifically affects youth and children. And we'll also be having like a gendered lens to this. And we are also planning on scaling this up on social media using reels, carousels, quiz. We're also planning on doing a hashtag. And for those that we cannot reach digitally, we are planning on doing like an on-ground awareness thing where we are going to be doing this TOT session, which is training for trainer session, where we identify youth from different places and we can give them like a training on the guide itself. And they can go ahead and educate schools and colleges on the said guide. So yeah, and the current status for this is that we've just started this month. We've just started doing research on mercury for now. We've been compiling our this research on what kind of papers we should be doing and what papers have necessary information on what kind of products. So yeah, we can go. So this is where I need your help. We can go to the next slide. Yeah, this is a visualization of. I think you'll have to press one more time. Yeah, this is like a visualization I made with AI, just for y'all to visualize on what kind of reports we can expect. One is like a visual, like completely just art and just very little text. The other one to be more inclusive, a more storytelling focused report. So yeah, we can go to the next slide. We can just jump right in for the consultation. So we want to learn from you how technical do you guys want content to be or a report to be? It would be great if you all could like maybe raise your hand or add it in the chat box.
Sorry, my screen switched up, but this was actually maybe it was good to see this as well. But I see Asani has hand up. But yeah, for people in the call, please do share your thoughts and in terms of how you may want to interact with material like this. Would this be useful? And I think, as Dia was mentioning, one of the main things we're trying to figure out is how technical to make the content. And how to balance that also with visuals. Charles gave a really, really good overview of what visuals can do in terms of engagement. But text also sometimes is necessary and important to also explain the statistics and the information and the action. So we would really like your thoughts for these guiding questions.
Could I perhaps come in and just give my quick thoughts on that? So for me, I think there's always a trade-off between making it fun, visual, attractive, memorable, and actually giving detail and technical information. I think there's no right way to place that. They both have their benefits, but I think regardless of where you fall on that kind of spectrum, there needs to be a way to point the reader or the person who's engaging with it to the next level of detail. So for me, that is quite often a really simple, colourful picture, which then points you to a song, which gives a bit more detail. But then I always include a way to kind of get more information, either from a kind of more simplistic document to kind of outline it, or the actual convention text. So you can follow through various degrees of complexity until you get right the way up to a really technical, detailed convention text. And that's good scientific kind of communication, is being able to cite your source and being able to lead the reader through the various levels of complexity. So there isn't a right or wrong way to kind of pitch it, as long as they can then follow on.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Charles, for that input. I also see a few comments saying some science and explanations, so we'll make sure to take that into account. Loish also has his hand raised. Yes, please.
Yeah, thank you. So basically, yeah, I was pointing out to a science communication training that we had as part of IVCN. So the second question reminds me of that, where we are told that you have to first convey the message that you want to convey to your audience, and then present your facts and the final action point. So that's like empowering also, because you are giving them a direction what to do. The first communicating key message, then the evidence, and then the final action point. So that's something that helps as science communication. And content technicality, I think should be because although it's a children and youth segment, but I think that it should be a bit more like for, let's say, college students, or maybe school, high school and above. So that, we engage in a way that, we can also take those discussions out with the policymakers too, when we need to, when we're developing those statements. So, and then by what type of content formats, I think it depends on our audiences, of course. If you're thinking in terms of developing content, this can be tiered, like for children, for more adult audience, and for like the, the actual engagement. And then any specific chemicals, of course, that's a lot of chemicals that we are looking for. I think if we can map out something with the GFC's current agenda, that would be much better. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you so much, Suresh, for your input. On the second question, I want to just like quickly explain. What I meant by facts first was, so in the report, we first discuss, okay, this is the problem. This, let's say, for example, this product, skin light whitening creams, has this much mercury in it. And then we go and do the solution. So what do you guys want to read first? Do you guys want to read the facts first, or solution as in, okay, this is an alternative that you can use. Why? Because in usual whitening or whitening creams, you have mercury present. So that's solution first messaging. And story first is basically doing the whole thing, but then through the lens of a character, or I think like the story visualization that I mentioned in the previous slide, that would be completely like in a story lens or a storytelling lens. So what would you all prefer? Would you all prefer just a facts first and then solution and then the rest of the things, or solution first or story first? And if y'all had any, we were also wondering in our previous call, because while we were collecting information, we were like, okay, this is very heavy. This topic is very heavy because we are reading about how a lot of these products have so many things, and we don't want to induce climate anxiety. So if y'all had more to say on that, that would be great. Yeah, and you guys can keep putting in, your suggestions in the chat box. We'll keep noting it down. I'm noting it down right now. And regarding number three, what type of content formats do you actually want to engage with? Um, do you guys like reports? Number one. So how long would an ideal report length, or like a PDF? what's the maximum number of pages that you guys can tolerate, and how like are you guys okay with it being completely like 70% graphics and text, or do you want it to be like very very short two page or infographics, or yeah, so that or video form. So what are your preferences? This is number three. And number four again is if you guys have any experts here who have like who are experts in environmental health or public health, if there's anything that we are also missing on, and Loish also mentioned to check the GFC framework itself agenda. So other than that, if there's anything else that we should focus on that isn't really getting much limelight, that would be great to know. Yes, Asani, please go ahead. You're muted. Asani, we can't hear you if you're speaking. Mm,
Asani, can you hear
okay,
us? I don't think so. Dan gave you a very specific answer.
yeah, 4 pages maximum. Okay. Mm,
If you do want to speak, you're unable to unmute yourselves directly, just to clarify. So you have to raise your hand and then we would be able to unmute you. So
yeah.
feel free to raise hand and then Dia will be able to follow up with you.
Yes, Abigail.
Hi everyone. My name is Abigail Ruganda from Kenya. So I think for getting the information, we would like it to be short and have both infographics and in the data to be a bit more simpler when it's not outside of the science part. So at least it's easier for people, especially who have English as their second language, to understand a bit easier. Yes.
Thank you so much, Abigail, for that input. We have another input from Kirigo, 10 to 15 pages with visuals, stories, and facts. Okay, everyone's loving visuals here.
The stories part is also interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, we should maybe work with Charles and think of some stories and characters.
Yeah, I love how with Charles' visuals he has names for them. So it's almost like
Yeah,
there could be a story that's created for each and every one of them as we explain the different topics.
yes, Martin.
Thank you so much for the flow, and thank you for the beautiful presentations that were ongoing. Some I was able to follow through. Some I was unable because I was in transit. But finally, I think I've settled now. Well, I think how technical do you want the content to be? Plain or some science with explanations? I think it should be both. It could be plain depending on the kind of audience and maybe the children we're trying to target, and with a little bit of scientific touch to it, explanations, also depending on the age variations. But I think in all overall sense, everything that's complex can be broken down to a level that whoever your target audience is can be able to get the content and understand it in layman's language. I think it should include some of the scientific explanations according to that should be age appropriate, because we are grooming the next generation that's going to take over us, and that's also going to be grooming the next. So I think it's always best to plan with the future in mind. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Marcy, for the input. Oh yeah, yes, please go ahead, Maris.
Hello,
Yes, you're audible.
please can you hear me?
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, okay. My name is Mavis. I'm from Ghana and I am a Cambridge educator. I also handle global perspectives as a subject, and we treat climate change, environmental pollution, and all of that. So, as a teacher, what works for me when teaching this topic is when I start with storytelling. Stories that when they go online, whilst we are learning, they can find them online. So, for example, one of the stories I used was the story of Galamsey. That is the pollution of our water bodies with mercury. And I made them engage in visible learning. That is by doing. So they had to draw with their own imagination a water body that was free from pollution. And after telling the story and having them watch a video on YouTube of an area in Ghana that had been polluted with harmful chemicals, they saw the change in the color of the water, turning from its clear state to becoming brownish. And they saw children drinking the water. They saw people suffering from illnesses because they had taken in that kind of water. So then again, I gave them another paper and I asked them to draw the consequences of polluting your water with harmful chemicals. So at the end of the day, I was teaching them the topic climate change, environmental pollution, reducing anxiety by involving them with visuals, with a drawing, telling them to share their opinion. What do they think could be done differently? And this also gave them their communication skills, their leadership skills, their critical thinking skills. So for me, I think that the storytelling should come first.
Okay, noted. Thank you so much, Mavis. We have Charles also.
And then once you are telling us something that they cannot find outside in the world, I also touched on the harmful gas called methane. The kids are well to do. And so sometimes they feel they do not need clothes. Like when they wear a cloth for a day or two, they feel they can just throw it away.
Okay.
How the impact that the throwing of their clothes would do to our environment by releasing methane, they had a change of mind, So I think that storytelling, adding facts, and then giving them the opportunity to also suggest solutions, because when they are part of the solution, then we are solving a problem. They are the agents at home. Their parents are always busy looking for money or engaged in other things. So children are our best agents to get the message across. And so mixing it up with the visuals, with the storytelling based on your area, because the harmful chemical in Ghana may not be the same in UK or in your country. What is really causing pollution in one area may be different from what is causing pollution in another area. So we can talk about everything in general, but then you personalize it to where you're coming from and you tell real stories that the children can relate to. And I think that would also help us to reduce eco anxiety and achieve our goal of reducing the effects of pollution in our environment. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mavis. That was awesome perspective. We have noted this down. Yes, Charles, please go ahead.
I'll try and be really quick. So just my thoughts on what type of content formats get engaged with. From conversations I have had with people I work with, it's very difficult to get certain things included into school curriculums. And where I live, unless it's on the curriculum, it won't get touched in schools, which means for special kind of conversations about chemicals, waste, that kind of stuff, you have to be trying to engage them outside of schools, which means engaging it in a way which competes with every other thing which a kid or a young person is wanting to do. So I've had conversations about actually at the moment a lot of that is unfortunately staring at their phone on social media, watching videos, that kind of stuff. And it means we are trying to have to compete with very high production, bright, bold, colourful, eye-catching videos, which I'm going to be brutally honest here, convention text can't compete with. So not only do you have to think about how our information is kind of worded, how it's phrased, how it's shown in a way which is easy enough for interpretation for children and youth, but also in a format that at least makes them on par with all of the other distractions that kids are getting if they're not able to get it through a school curriculum.
Okay. Yeah, that's a great idea because I think we can also start off with social media that can use them to kind of lure into the reports. So we get in reels and videos, and then that, puts out a little bit of snippets about the report, and then hopefully if they're interested enough, they will go to the report itself. So yeah, thank you so much, Charles. Loish, yes. Loish, you're muted.
Thank you. Yeah, sorry, I wasn't able to unmute myself. So, uh, just building on what Mavis and the previous speaker already said. Actually, I was thinking it as a way of also building up the bottom-up part of the discussions. For example, if we are because storytelling and communication is also a way to gather the bottom up solutions or the bottom up approaches that might be that might get fit into our statements or might get fit into our broader discussion and engagement too. For example, if uh, just the storytelling part that Mavis was telling, that if that's possible and this our audience understand the issues very, very clearly, which means they can also become part of different technical points if we have the that translation capability, not in terms of like not in terms of language, but also in terms of technical to common language. So I think the storytelling can become a way to channelize that. I just want to make that point.
Okay, thank you so much. I think there was another hand in between. Okay. We have a few comments as well. Educator from Ghana, you explained. Oh, okay. Mm, Yeah, yes, visual storytelling is important. So actually showing contaminated sites and effects of water pollution can also help create dialogue and solutions. Everyone's okay, a lot of storytelling. So I think we'll have to work on that, Jana. A lot of storytelling. Yeah, yes, Abigail.
Um, hello. I wanted also to add on, because of the different backgrounds also we are coming from, there's also need to look at the local languages, indigenous languages, and possible translations to be able to capture a wider audience, as the national languages can be a bit restricted, especially in developing economies. Yes.
Okay, thank you so much. I've been thinking about it too, like how do we make it as accessible as possible, but we are solving it one at a time. Yes, Moko, nice to see you.
Hi everyone, my name is Mokoy. So for me, as part of the working group who has been engaging with the community as well as the youth a lot here in Botswana, I think one of the tasks that we have is to relate, have a relatable way, which I feel storytelling is a tool. Now, in this sense, because often at times there's a gap between me as the community, I'll put this in context, me as the community member feeling I have a problem of, let's say, leachate from a landfill. And then when it's been discussed in a global spectrum or in a national level, it's as if it's not my problem. It becomes an analogy as if I bring it's more of a suggestion. I'm not coming with the solution. I'm not coming with pain. Now, as we've been trying to capacitate them and hear them, it's more of us relaying messages more than us portraying that we bring messages to them. I think that's one of the things that we should look at, as to say, let's not shift the wedding. Let's take it as it is and bring feedback. The other thing is we never bring feedback from the community members to say, okay, this is the suggestion or the problems you guys felt and you had. And how best do we bring back? What was the response? And how, such that the conversation gets going, and then the measure of success, now you could see it. So now that there are more of subsiding towards to say, even to the curriculum, I would say let's use the language that is already there within the curriculum. For example, we once did a capacity building on World Environment Day, which was aligned with climate change. And part of it is that the curriculum has life cycles of producer to the end producer. And now, how do you synergize climate action to say, okay, fine, when a producer dies, it shows that there's no life cycle. Like let's study what they have and use that language. I think that's my last message. Thank you.
Okay, that was very helpful. Thank you so much, Mokobi. I think it we've been thinking about, okay, how do we get something different, and we didn't really think of the lines of how do we make use of something that's already there, that's something that we are familiar with. So thank you. Okay, there's this message here in South Africa in Free State Province. We have program called Change Makers, where we go to school and learn or vote for other learners to be change makers. After they become change makers, we do activation sessions where we taught them about advocating for climate change also and waste management. After they do awareness in their um, own schools and also in communities, they specialize with debate, poetry, and also storytelling. Hence, we have been able to reach more people also. They do practicals, for example, last year they did clothes with plastic paper flowers, soap holders with plastic bottle, and also they create posters. This is like a really good input for our on the ground sessions as well. We could use this. Thank you so much.
I think with the time we might have to
Yeah.
also put a close to the conversation, but this was really, really useful.
Yeah.
And there's some common
Maybe
themes.
what we could do is put out like a form to collect, because I think people have a lot to say. So before we get in too much into the project itself, we can bring in their inputs and then we can work along those lines.
Absolutely. No, that's a good idea, Dia. Thank you so much. And thank you for those who engaged in the consultation. And also, it really flowed really nicely from Charles's presentation as well. I think it set people's minds in terms of connecting how visuals and arts and stories can also connect with the evidence and the research. So thank you so much for everyone who engaged and for staying over time. Thank you for that. We'll also be sharing with the recording afterwards, so you can look back at parts that you've missed, or if you want to share it also with your networks. And as Dia said, we will try to follow up with a form. I think that's a really good idea, and a survey that can get a bit more consultation, and for you to write out your inputs through that as well. And yeah, with that, let me close the recording.